Hey, it's Binu again, and I just finished watching Marvel's Loki TV show and I really wanted to try animating him. So today I'll be showing you guys how I created this short animation of Loki using Blender's grease pencil. I've always wanted to animate something in Disney's classic art style, which you can see in movies like Tarzan, Aladdin, Treasure Planet and all. So I thought that Loki would translate really well to this sort of Disney art style, since technically Loki is a Disney prince right now and everyone's here for it.
We love you so much, boy.
So I started by doing some style research specifically from Tarzan, since this is one of my favorites and I could see Tarzan's features being slightly in line with Tom Hiddleston's. So then I tried doing some concept art for Loki in this style using reference photos of Tom Hiddleston to get a feel for this character. And I wanted to simplify and remake part of this scene where Loki unsheathes his sword from his back as it ignites. So using a still frame from this shot as a reference, I drew out one style frame. With this, I can have a single reference that I can follow and pick colors from when I'm animating in grease pencil. And I didn't use the exact color scheme from my reference, but I made it a bit more colorful and vibrant so that it's similar to what you would find in an animated movie. So now let's move on to the grease pencil stuff. I'm gonna start by bringing in my reference video by enabling movie files in the filter over here. And I bring in my style frame over here as well to keep as a reference. Now I'm going to use the video as a rough reference point and animate the overall pose of the body like in every 10 frames as keyframes for my animation. And then on new layers, I'm going to draw over my rough pose and bring out the details in his face and the body. Note that I'm not going to lip sync his words for this animation, since I'm just going to simplify this shot to one of him just shouting out while pulling the sword out. With the keyframes done, I slowly move on to the in-betweens after that. After I was happy with the in-betweens, I moved all of the frames closer to each other since I didn't really want the action to run for as long as it does in the reference, and I want the action to be quick and snappy. And after that, we get into the inking grind. So as usual, I'm inking everything over again as cleanly as I can. I found it a bit difficult to get super clean lines as I would have liked since grease pencil has vector brushes, but I worked with what I had and tried to clean them up as much as I could. And after I'm done inking and I'm ready to color, I'm closing all the gaps that are there outside of the frame so that I can use the fill tool to color. Speaking of coloring, grease pencil got two new super cool features with Blender 2.93, and that is multi-frame coloring and gap closing. These features will really save you a lot of time. So now let's say you want to fill in a whole bunch of frames with color but you don't want to fill them one by one at a time. All we have to do right now is to just click on this multi-frame button and then select the range of frames you want this applied to. And just click on the area you need colored with the paint bucket tool, and that's it. This should automatically color all of your frames. But in this case, since this is a bit of a complicated animation, I won't be using this technique. This works much better for simpler animations. With that, I'm coming to the close gaps feature. So if there's an area that you're finding difficult to fill because of an unclosed gap, simply go to advanced over here while you're in the paint bucket tool, and then add a small value to stroke extension. And then click on the area that you want to color. Now it will show some blue lines that will try and close the gaps in your line work. You can control the length of these lines by scrolling up and down, and once the lines close your gaps, just click and now it will color the area with no issue. So by picking the colors from my style frame, I continue coloring all of the frames using solid colors using this method. I also colored in some parts that were difficult to fill with my brush tool. And then we hop into good old Krita to work a bit more on the background. I'm using the background I already have in the style frame and bringing out more details in the clouds with a variation of brushes. And when I'm happy with the result, I import it back onto Blender as an image plane. And now for the fire, I'm using an orange material and coloring it on its own layer with its outline, and then I decrease the opacity so that it becomes see-through. So I'm adding a glow onto the fire from the effects panel after copying the fire animation over to a new grease pencil object. Always remember to keep layers you want to add effects to on separate grease pencil objects, because you can't add effects to separate layers on the same grease pencil object. After that, I give it a bit more shading using the tint brush. I'm just slightly coloring the starting point of the fire with a bright yellow material. Now I need a shadow layer on Loki since this style just uses one layer of shadows on the characters. I'm gonna do that by creating a mask layer, and I just have a fill material set to black with the layer opacity to somewhere around 0.3, and I just draw away. And with that done, we are gonna add some light shining down from his flaming sword. I'm starting off by adding a point light to the base of the fire on the sword, and I set the color to a bright yellow so that it looks like the yellow at the bottom end of a fire. This light will shine some light onto his hand as well, and then I simply position the light with the movement of the fire in each frame. But I want some light falling onto his body and his face as well. I'm gonna fix this by bringing in an area light. This light will have much more of a spread than the point light. So I'm repeating the same process as before with this light, and now we've got some nice lighting coming down from the fire as well. And finally, I'm gonna animate some small embers flying around as the sword goes in flames. I'm doing this in the same grease pencil object as the flame so that the glow affects the embers as well. And when I was about to finish this off with some audio in After Effects, I had an idea to give some slight camera shakes and some lightning flashes using an overlay layer. With that, I added in some sound effects from my reference shot, and bam, we've got a Loki animation in a classic Disney style. So I hope you guys enjoyed my process breakdown video as much as I did animating this, and don't forget to tell us what you think down in the comments. Also, shout out to our awesome peeps out on Patreon. And if you don't already, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We've got 3 tiers over there, including a new tier where we show you all the things that inspire us, from games to movies to all kinds of TV shows. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.